In our first video from Chapter 4, we talked about the style buttons. Today I'd like to talk about tables. And there's so much you can do in Word with tables. You can see that I have one already created here. And the first thing really to show you would be how to create a table. So you go to the Insert tab, and you click the Table drop down, and you just hover over however many columns and rows you would like. So a 4x5 table would mean 4 columns and 5 rows, like it's pictured here. And to go ahead and set that up, I just click. And so here's my table. And if I want to do some real quick things to show you here, if you click on this 4-headed arrow, it selects the entire table. And that is a quick way to apply formatting for the whole table. So if, let's say, I were to go to look at my tabs up here, there's Table Tools. That's my contextual tab that shows up when my table is selected. Now I've got Design and Layout. So one of the first things that we use would be a table style. Now you can apply shading and any kind of formatting row by row and column by column, or you could go to Table Styles and just select one of these pre-made table styles. Maybe I want something like this. You would use something like this if the top row reflects your headings and the rows underneath would be data within those headings. Let's see, you could also apply different borders. So in the table style that I just selected, it takes away the borders. Now the borders you can see on this table are the black printed lines that outline all of the cells. Those black lines are borders and they do print, but maybe you don't want to have your borders displayed. When I applied this table style on the bottom table, it happens to be a style where there are no printed borders, but they denote different rows and where the boundaries are just by shading. So on the top table I have boundaries, and I'm going to select the table and I'm going to take away my borders by clicking No Borders. Now I can still see the dotted lines, and that shows me where the guidelines or the boundaries are, but the printed borders are gone, and you can verify that. I'll just click Print Preview quickly, or not so quickly. Word is not responding. See, this is my new computer and still it has its little glitches. Okay, so on this print preview you can see that there are no printed boundaries, or I'm sorry, no printed borders on the top table, and you can see my table style that I applied on the bottom table. Alright, so I actually don't like that. I want my borders to come back. Alright, looking at the Layout tab, there's some things that I'd like to show you there. View grid lines, that just means if you have no borders and you can see the dotted grid lines, or I also refer to them as boundaries. If you turn this button off, you won't be able to see those at all. Let's see, I'm going to show you this a little bit later. I want to focus right here for a minute on cell size grouping. Let's say I would like to make the row height on this table that is selected a little bit higher. I can just use these little toggle buttons and make the rows higher. I can also change the cell alignment so that we've got 9 buttons here. Top left, top center, top right, center left, center, and center right, and bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. So if I want every cell in my table to be centered, I can click this button. Or let's say I only want a particular column to be centered. I can just select that column and click a different alignment button for that column. I'm going to get to some other buttons in a minute, but I want to show you some ways to select rows and or columns. If I want to select one row, I can either drag and select it, or I can put my cursor to the left of the table and click once. When the cursor looks like this white arrow, I can click, and the mini toolbar comes up to see if I want to make any quick changes. Or it can also select a column in the same manner by just dragging downward. Or if I want to select a column, I can put my cursor above the column until it becomes a black arrow. And it doesn't become a black arrow just until you're almost at the top of the column. So if I click at this point, it selects the column. So what I'm going to do is select this row, and I'm going to make it bolded. if it's not already. Okay, and then I'll apply maybe italics. Okay, So I've got very minimal formatting here, but I'm going to do a few more things for you. If I would like to, let's say I want to do some sort of formula calculation with this mileage, I'm going to put a label in this cell, and I'm going to right align that so that it's more clear than I'm labeling the information in this cell. And then when I come over here, I'm going to want to know what the average mileage of these vehicles are. So in the Layout tab of my table, there's a button over here that says Formula. And it's going to automatically come up saying, okay, do you want the sum, meaning do I want to add all of these values and then put the sum? And the word above means, do you want the sum of all the numbers above in this table? But actually I don't. I want the average. So I'm just going to delete the word sum and replace it with the word average. And it doesn't really need to be in all caps. And then click OK. I'm going to leave the parentheses in the above because I do want it to know that I want the average of the above values. So it gives me a value there, 55,250. So that's very nice. And now I'm going to go up and I'm going to insert a row. So if I wanted to insert a row at the bottom of this table, at this point I just hit the tab button. But that's not what I want. I want to insert a row in between these two rows. So I can do that a few different ways. I can select the row and right click and go down to insert and choose insert row above. Or I can come up to the Layout tab and choose insert above. And I'm going to put one more vehicle in here. Okay, so if you notice, once I go to the next cell, nothing is going to change in this. So if I want to update that, I'm going to need to select it. And you can just select it by clicking in it. And then I'm going to right click and choose Update Field. Okay, now it has changed. So that's a nice, easy way you could use a formula in a table. One thing I'm going to change about my table up top here is that I don't like how there's so much white space in it. I'm going to take out some of the white space by making the columns a little narrower. In order to do that, I can hover over the divider between columns 1 and 2, and do you see my cursor changed into a vertical line with the left and right arrows? I'm just going to click and drag that boundary in. I'm going to do the same with the other two boundaries. So that's a real easy way to make a change like that. You can also drag the boundaries of your row height by individual rows. I showed you already how you could change all of the rows by selecting your table and then changing the row height. Or I could just use that button without selecting the whole table to increase a particular row. Or like I said, I can just drag to do the same thing. It's not generally a good idea to have different sizes within your rows within the table because it just looks kind of sloppy. But anyway, if you needed to adjust that, you could for whatever reason that you might need to. So we haven't really covered everything about tables that you can do in Word because you can do a lot. But this is really the highlights and the things that we would need to know for our exercises in Chapter 4. So thanks for your attention, and I will see you for the next video soon.